We are up to the Ayin Hey Amad Aleph. We are up to the Mishnah. We actually had this Mishnah previously, brought down in the Gemara just a few days ago. We're talking about whether a husband actually has to hear his wife's neder in order to annul it or not. And we brought a proof from this Mishnah where he sort of says, before I go on my trip, all the Nedarim that you will make in the future will be null and void. And even though he didn't hear about it, so we wanted to bring a proof from there. And then we said, Lav Daf gets a proof because maybe he meant when you make the neder, that's when this annulment will kick in. Or when you make the neder, I'll hear it then and I'll annul it. And he just worried that it'll be distracted. That's why he brought it up now. And so on. So there's the Mishnah. And the Gemara, even though it didn't resolve it, but from the Gemara's flow, it seems the Gemara accepts that the husband does not necessarily have to hear his fiance, his Nedarim. A man says to his wife, all those vows that you will make from today onwards, until I return from this and this destination, they should be fulfilled. He's saying that all of the dharma that didn't happen yet, but if they will happen, I want them to be confirmed. Because it hasn't happened in the neder, how can you confirm something that hasn't happened yet? But instead of saying they should be confirmed, we're saying that they should be annulled. Annulment you can make, even though it hasn't happened yet, you can make it. And the Chacham say, just like you cannot make a confirmation, nor can you make a cancellation. I'll bring you a logic why I say you can cancel it. And it goes as follows. A neder that already was made. Let's say she made a neder, which means it's a powerful neder. Yet I can confirm it. So a neder that he's explaining himself why he holds you can annul a neder that was not made yet. So if a neder was already made, so the neder already has weight, you can go ahead and cancel it. Surely you can do a preemptive strike and say, you know what, any neder you're about to make is null and void from now. Surely you can do that. It's much weaker. When it comes to confirmation, so let's say by a real neder you can make a confirmation because the neder is already existing. All I'm doing is confirming an existing neder. To go ahead and to say that I should also be able to confirm a neder that hasn't happened yet, that I cannot do. Or others say that maybe the reason why the confirmation doesn't help is, if it's not the olam, is because like a mekatos. What do you mean like a mekatos? You don't know the neder she's going to make. What happens in the neder when you find out what it is? You're not so happy that it should be confirmed. So it comes out that the whole thing was based on an error. So the we say you cannot confirm the Nedarim in the future. These are two possible reasons. So that's the Kal B'Chayim Rav Lezer says. Lezer says. No neder is good with them for your rush if you make it done. A neder is never a good thing. Even if it's a good neder, don't make the neder, do it anyway. Said to him, our problem is maybe Kal B'Chayim in logic you're right, but as a pasuk it says, Isha yekimenu v'isha yiferenu. Her husband can confirm it, her husband can cancel it. Eshebalach lal hakim balach al hafer. Those nedarim that you have the right to confirm, for example, she already made it, so you have the right to cancel it instead. If you don't have the option of confirming it because it hasn't happened yet, she hasn't made the neder, and therefore might be a mekatos, or the neder is leibolach al hafer. You don't have the option either of canceling it. Now the Gemara Nedarim is very interesting. It has a number of chakiras, questions that sound like brisket questions. We had Ram Vachama throughout from the beginning. From Gimel, other places that we had Rabbah. Now the Gemara asked a very interesting question. There's an interesting question which the Gemara doesn't ask, but it's very similar. We say that if somebody goes to the mikveh and you're holding a sheret, you're holding an animal that generates tumah in your hand. You go to mikveh and the sheret is b'yadei, it doesn't help. So there's a chakira. There's a question. So how do we understand that? Is it pshat that you never became tired because while you're in the mikveh, so you're told the mikveh and the shed is b'yad, you never became tired? Or is it pshat you became tired because in the mikveh, but immediately right afterwards you became tummy again? Now the Gemara asks a very similar question. How do we understand Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Eliezer says that you can go ahead and annul a neder your wife didn't make. So tomorrow your wife makes a neder. So what happens? Is her neder a valid neder, but then it gets immediately canceled because you tagged on a cancellation? Or is it like a preemptive strike? The neder chatchila cannot take effect. Now, what's the difference? Says the Gemara. Iboyiluhu, Rabbi Lezer, Meichel Choli, the neder is a valid neder, but a batalin gets immediately cancelled because you tagged on to this hafara, this cancellation. Or we say there was never a neder in the first place. You know, might have committed. It's very theoretical. What's the difference which way it is? Either way, there's no neder anymore. Or say, yes, there is. Going to atfis acharina bahada nidr. Let's say your wife says, I want to become a nazir, but you tagged on this the annulment that automatically falls apart. And another person heard him say that, and he said, ba'ani, and I. So if he says and I, if you're going to say her neder is valid for, or her valid, but then it gets canceled. So if he said and I, it means he will become a nazir. But if you say that the neder never was a neder in the first place because the preemptive strikes, then there's become a nazir. Even if you say the hafara is tagged onto it, it gets canceled immediately. How can it be a nazir? No, when we say that it gets tagged on and then there's hafara, it's as if the words that he used for hafara, which we said before, is mei filichi, 2 words, mei filichi, yet your neder should be annulled, is tagged on right after her neder. So let's say it takes 2 seconds. Va'ani is 1 word. So he was able to, this other person, or he or she, was able to say the word va'ani before your full sentence, mei filichi, took place. So therefore that person will become a nazir. Or do we say no? When you tagged on that hafara to preemptive strike, there's no ned in the first place. So that's how the Rishonim explain the Gemara's question. So, if it delineates, if you tell me cholin that the neder is a valid neder, just it gets cancelled immediately afterwards, have it fisusa. Then the person who says the ani and I too, yes, it's a valid neder. But loy cholin. But if you can tell me that there's no neder, then loy. Then there's no substance here. There's nothing when you say vani and I what? Because there was no neder in the first place. So how do we understand it? Toshma, first let's understand from the Rabbi Lezer's argument. Rabbi Lezer says, Im and Rabbi Lezer made a kabel. If you have the capacity to cancel a neder that's in full force, surely you can cancel a neder that hasn't even started yet because there's no force yet. That's what he said. Im and the darim shebol chalis. If you're able to cancel a neder that it came in full force, like and the darim shebol chalis, can't he then cancel the darim that never came into effect? But if you're going to tell me that the word of Rabbi Lezer is that the neder does come into effect because it gets immediately canceled, so what's this kabel chayman? What's the difference? Shema minay loy cholim, and also the wording says shaloi bo, that never will come in. If you want meek tani, does it say she'enon boyin alakamim shaloi bo tani? That what adayin loy bo? No, really, you're right. Maybe the neder will come into effect, but the moment that I made the hafara, there was no neder yet. And that's a kabel chaymer. That already weakens the neder. True, the state of play will be that once the neder comes into effect, then it gets cancelled. But the point is, I made that hafara before the neder came into effect. So therefore, surely that hafara should be considered stronger than a hafara that after the neder already came into effect. So it proves what doesn't prove one way or the other. Says he, but okay, Toshma, come in here. We learned in the Braisa, Rabbi Lezer says to them, in a place where a person cannot cancel his own nedarim. In other words, we learned over there in Chagiga that these are major laws that are hanging on a hair, and one of them is that by a nazir that you can annul a neder, you can annul nedarim. Where does the Torah say that someone can annul nedarim? Because it says lo yachil devara, you should not breach your own words. But others can. But we learn from the 2 things. First of all, that others can, and second of all, but you can't. So it's madach in a case where you cannot annul your own nedarim. Yet yet you could do a preemptive strike. And Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, by Kol Nidei, the Kol Nidei is a machlekes Rishonim where what the Chazan says only applies to the Chazan, not to everybody in the congregation. But the Rosh Hashanah, when we make Hataras Nedarim, we annul on Nedarim, and we talk about the future as well. So we're putting into place for myself. And we had big machlekes Rishonim that only works if you were not aware that you made neder, or if you and therefore because you forgot, it's like a neder, or that dafka if you were aware that you made this tonight when you made the neder, so therefore as if you wanted the tonight to cancel it. But anyway, the point is, I cannot, once I make a neder, I cannot cancel it. But if I didn't make the neder yet on Rosh Hashanah, I say that all the nederim that I make in the future should be null and void. So we see that. To annulling a neder prior to the neder is much easier than annulling a neder post a neder. a right for myself. So Rabbi Lezer says, you cannot annul your own nedarim. Yet mission other once you made a neder. Yet made for neder atzmai, actually other you can be made for before you made the neder. Is mokem shemay for nidre ishtay mishatidr in a place where you have the right to cancel the nedarim of your wife after she made the neder, which means you are so much more powerful against the nedarim of your wife than against your own nedarim. Is Einadin surely in logic surely you should be able to be in the position to do a preemptive strike and prevent her from making the nedarim and put a hafar into place. That's his argument. So what are we proving that? My love, isn't it the ishta doing delay when we're comparing your own you're annulling your own neder and annulling your wife's neder to each other. So Mahu, when he says in Rosh Hashanah, all my future neder, was talking about that I want the hafara to kick in now before. The loy chaylin over here, just about him, it's not chal at all. He has no neder at all. Is af ishtanam middle chaylin. So same thing that by your wife. There's no neder at all. You asked the question, was a neder cancel or not? There's no neder at all. Because when you say that Rosh Hashanah, I don't want it to be neder, you're saying I don't want it to be neder at all. Not that I want it to be neder, that I'm canceling it. I don't want the neder to take place in the first place. Because how do I know that? Maybe by him also it means the neder is a neder and then it gets canceled. Can be. Because the whole reason why Rabbi Lezer says that a neder can be a net, whichever way you learn, is because if I can cancel the full neder, sure I can cancel this neder, even if you say the neder is chal, but I put it into train before the neder took place. But you can't say that by a person on his own. A person on his own can never cancel his own neder once the neder came into force. So why would if my neder, if I make a hafara, if I say every Shana that all my future neder should be canceled, and if you're going to tell me the pshat is the neder comes into force, then I can't cancel it. Where's my kal v'chomer? So it must be when it comes to myself. When I say that I don't want it to be a neder, that means it never starts. No neder at all. And we're comparing a person to his relation with his wife to himself. So doesn't that prove that there's never a net in the first place? Anyone know? Why can't it be that when the details, each one details are different. For yourself, the details are there's never a net in the first place, and for your wife, the specifics are that there's a net and it gets canceled straight away. It doesn't have any bearing on what he's trying to say here. So therefore, we have no proof one way or another what happens. Tashma, come in here. They said to Rabbi Lezer, Uma mikveh, just like by mikveh, Shemailas atmein mitzumasam. The different ways learning shot the Gemara will learn this way. It's a mikveh that the Rabban and respond back to Rabbi Lezer. When it comes to a mikveh, somebody's tummy goes into immerses in the mikveh and they come out tired, right? Mikveh. Once you became tamei, the full force of tumah, the mikveh has the power to render you tired, using your logic. So surely, if he goes a preemptive, I'll go into the mikveh first, and then I'll touch a carcass of something of an animal that generates tumah. I should be tired using your kal v'chomer. If I have the power to cleanse something after the vent, surely I have the power to cleanse it before the vent. It doesn't work. That's what they're saying. This is how the Rosh and others, the Rambam, one shot as well. And a mikveh that has the ability to take someone who transform them from being tamei to toir. Yet a matzel ala toirim milatame does not protect you. There's no preventive measure that if you're toir, it should prevent you becoming tamei. And even while you're in the mikveh, if you're bringing a sheretz with you, the mikveh cannot help you in any way whatsoever. So therefore, Adam, a person she'ain milas atmeim b'tamasim, ein adin who shelo yatzel ala ta'odin milatame. So a person that cannot, maybe a person has not the capacity to make something Torah, so surely he cannot protect the Torah from becoming tamei. That's what they said to him. In other words, when it comes to the neder, how can he prevent it? So this logic that if you can do something post-event, you can do pre-event, it doesn't make sense. So what's pshat of it? Clearly the pshat here is because they bring a rai from mikveh. And a mikveh, what's the idea? Preventative. It shouldn't happen at all. That's what the idea of mikveh. Same over here, it shouldn't happen at all. The word is that when you put into by a neder is different than you put it. You want to say that by a neder that you could put preventative measure. And since we're comparing it to mikveh, what would you want it to happen? You shouldn't become tamei in the first place. Because in the case of mikveh, if he became tamei, then how would it become Torah afterwards? It must be that when the Gemara is saying this question, how ludicrous it is. Saying, look, if you go into the mikveh and then you touch an avela, Is that going to help you? What, in other words, is going to help you not becoming tummy? There's no question it's not going to help you if you did become tummy to take it away. It's only you shouldn't become tummy. And they're using that argument against Rabbi Lezer. That means you, Rabbi Lezer, is saying that it should just, by a neder, you put into place a hafara that you should never, the neder should never take place in the first place. And therefore, we see clearly that's shot.
So it seems like the two cases would be different, but I just can't define it.
Okay, we'll see in a minute, yeah. It's just the wording of the Chachamim. They're arguing to Rabbi Lezer, and they're using an example, an analogy of a case of a mikveh where they're arguing, they're trying to point out to Rabbi Lezer that just because you can do something post, it can do pre. In the case of the mikveh, in their pre, over there, the pshat is, would it make sense to say you don't become tummy at all? And then they using that for the neder, would it make sense to say that I make hafara shouldn't be a neder at all? That's what Chacham is saying. So obviously Rabbi Lezer is saying that no, that you can put into place something that shouldn't become a neder at all. Not the pshat became a neder, then they get cancelled. That's what I'm saying here. So you say, if you're going to use the brisa as your proof, well, aim a sefer. Continue the sefer. Rabbi Lezer, they continued on and they said to Rabbi Lezer, continuing with the same arguments. If you take a keli, a utensil that became tameh, and then you immerse it in the mikveh, it becomes toy. Is yabilu, therefore you want to say that keli l'chiyit. Can you use it? Can you're following your logic? Can I take my kelim, put it in the mikveh, not only because it's a brand new vessel and you have to take the mikveh, but I'm putting those to prevent it from becoming tameh. To prevent it from becoming tameh. Is shemamina chaylin, and so we see from here that chaylin. It sounds like what he's saying here is, we're saying here yabilu keli l'kshiyitma l'tor. In this case, the Chacham is saying, so according to your logic, if the keli becomes tameh, it should rather become tar. So here in their wording, what are they saying? That it will become tameh, but because you put it in the mikveh beforehand, it should immediately reverse that and become tar again. Going back to neder, as if they're saying, and you want that you do it, you tag along in the moment, and then you want that there should be a neder and immediately should fall apart. So we see that from the wording, the Rabbanan seem to understand. Rabbi Lezer holds that the neder does come into effect, but immediately it becomes annulled. The Reisha seems to be saying that Rabbanan understood Rabbi Lezer to say, because they're comparing it to a person on a mikveh. The Rabbanan understood Rabbi Lezer saying that this preemptive measure means that there's no neder at all. But from the sefer, the wording about a vessel going in the mikveh, it seems that they understood the Rabbi Lezer saying that it will be a neder, but immediately it gets cancelled. So which one is it? Amri Rabbanan l'kaimelu b'tam Rabbi Lezer. Must be Rabbanan themselves are not convinced what Rabbi Lezer is saying. This is what they're saying to him. My svidalach. What are you holding? Are you saying that the husband should be able to put hafara into place, that the neder will take effect, but immediately afterwards you tagged on this hafara that it gets canceled afterwards? To have the keli, you have to have a question on keli. If a vessel you put a tardy vessel, you put in the mikveh, and then later when the vessel becomes tameh, it should become tardy straight away, according to your logic, and no such thing. And he lost the chaylin, but if you hold that no, what you're trying to say here is I'm putting a preemptive measure. There shouldn't be a ned in the first place, and to have a mikveh the yomtza, the mikveh itself, not the keli. Look at the mikveh. Does the mikveh have the capacity to make sure that the person never becomes tameh? And therefore, we have no proof one way or another. And we'll continue tomorrow in mitzvah.